Hi everyone, welcome back to another What I Eat in a Day video where I share with you everything I had to eat one day recently. For breakfast I made some loaded hummus toast, and for this I just sliced up 250 grams of chestnut mushrooms and I added those to a pan with a little oil. I fried them off for a few minutes, then I just added in a pinch of garlic granules, some chili flakes and seasoned it with salt and black pepper. I gave that a good mix together and just left it to fry off whilst I then toasted 2 slices of rye bread. And once those were toasted, I then just spread on a generous amount of hummus. I had half an avocado in my fridge as well, so I sliced that up and placed that on the top. And then I added on the mushrooms, topped it with some fresh rocket, and then I squeezed on the juice of half a lemon. This is such a filling breakfast that would also be great as a brunch or a lunch idea. There's so many flavours and textures, and I just think hummus on toast makes a great alternative to avocado toast too. You can also add on some fried tomatoes, some sun-dried tomatoes, some grilled asparagus. You can really get creative with the toppings for this. For a snack before lunch, I had some rice cakes with an artichoke, red pepper and herb spread. For this, I took 2 jarred artichoke hearts which were quartered, 4 jarred red cherry peppers, some fresh parsley and basil and some salt and black pepper, and I blended that up in my Magimix food processor using the mini bowl and the mini blade, which is great for smaller quantities like this. I blended it for around 2 minutes into a paste which was still a little bit chunky, and then I took 3 rice cakes. These ones were corn and quinoa, and I just spread the paste on top. I always find some of the most simple things put together and blended in a food processor turn out to be some of the most delicious. This is one of them, and this would also be great for sandwiches, other crackers, as a dip, or turned through some pasta. I've made similar ones to this before with sun-dried tomatoes, large roasted red peppers and nutritional yeast, so again you can completely mix and match the ingredients. I then made a chickpea, kale and potato stew for lunch. For this I first sliced up a white onion and then I added 1 teaspoon of coconut oil to a pan and added the onion in with it. I fried that off for a good 5 minutes and then I minced 2 cloves of garlic and added that in too. I fried that off for a few more minutes before then adding in half a teaspoon of chili flakes, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of coriander, a teaspoon of paprika, a tablespoon of turmeric and a pinch of cayenne pepper. I mixed it well and fried it off again before then adding in 1 tablespoon of tomato puree and gave it another good stir. I then peeled 2 carrots and sliced them up, as well as peeling and chopping 2 medium potatoes. I added those to the pan next, coated them well in what was in the pan, and then I added in 1 tin of chickpeas, a tin of chopped tomatoes and a can of coconut milk. I seasoned it well with salt and black pepper, gave it a good stir together, and then I turned up the heat and continued to stir it until it came to a boil. I then turned the heat back down, placed the lid on and left it to simmer for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes I then added in a large handful of chopped kale, stirred it well and just allowed the kale to wilt, and then I served up 1 portion in a bowl and sprinkled some fresh chopped coriander on the top. This again is something so filling and comforting as a lunch or a dinner this time of year. I just love to eat bowls of it on its own, but it's also really great with some quinoa or brown rice on the side too. There's so much flavour packed into one bowl. The other veggies give it loads of texture. The kale goes slightly chewy, which I really love, and the broth is so creamy. For an afternoon snack, I had a packet of these Hippies chickpea puffs in the cheese and love flavour, which is my absolute favourite. They're the cheesiest vegan cheese crisps I've ever come across. I just wish that there was more in the bag. They're basically made from chickpea flour as well as rice flour and loads of different flavourings, and they come in about 6 different flavours altogether. They all taste amazing and they're just incredibly Moorish. For dinner, I made some pesto cashew cheese stuffed pasta shells in a baked marinara sauce. I first made the marinara sauce by finely dicing up 1 large white onion, and I added that to a pan with a little oil. I then just allowed it to soften for 5 minutes, and next I minced 2 cloves of garlic. I then added those to the pan and fried it off for a few minutes before then adding in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and 1 teaspoon of dried herbs. I mixed that together really well and fried it off for a further few minutes. Then I added in 2 cans of chopped tomatoes, 1 cup of boiling water, and seasoned it well with some salt and black pepper. And then I just left it to simmer for around 15 to 20 minutes. In the meantime, I took some large pasta shells. I found these ones in Tesco's. I cooked the pasta in some boiling salted water for around 5 to 7 minutes. Whilst the pasta was cooking, I made the pesto cashew cheese by adding the juice of 1 lemon, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 cloves of garlic, 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 2 tablespoons of pine nuts, and 1 cup of cashew nuts to my Magimix food processor. I then picked 2 large handfuls of fresh basil leaves, added those in too with some salt and black pepper. I used the main bowl and blade for this as it holds a lot more ingredients, and I blended it up for around 3 minutes until a pesto cashew cheese formed. At this point I preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius, and then in a large baking dish I took 2/3 of the marinara sauce and spread that out in the base. I then drained off the pasta and layered the shells on top of the sauce. I filled each pasta shell with around 1.5 tablespoons of the pesto cashew cheese. I added the remaining marinara sauce all over the top, and then I sprinkled on some fresh chopped parsley. I placed that in the oven to bake for around 20 minutes, and then once it was done I served it up between 2 plates. When I saw these pasta shells I couldn't not use them for a recipe, and this idea instantly popped straight into my head, so I had to try it out. The texture actually reminds me a bit of ravioli, especially with the filling inside, so whilst it's still quite different to ravioli, it's a great alternative at the same time because many shop-bought ravioli options aren't vegan. And you could stuff the pasta shells with anything you like to, maybe some lentil bolognese, some crumbled vegan mushroom meatballs, I'll leave my recipe in the description box below, or a mix of chopped olives, sun-dried tomatoes, roasted red peppers and herbs mixed together. Again, it's a dish that you can really get creative with every time you make it, and whilst it is a bit time consuming, it's so delicious and it's a great idea, especially for a family dinner night or if you have some friends over. For dessert, I made these strawberry cheesecake bites. I first ground up some almonds and hazelnuts with a pestle and mortar, and then I took some fresh strawberries and I dipped them into some vegan yogurt. This one was an almond one. And then I placed those on a plate lined with some baking paper and popped them in the freezer to set for 20 minutes. I then removed them from the freezer and then did a second coating of yogurt by dipping each strawberry in again. I then dipped the tips of the strawberries into the ground up nuts, so it created 3 different layers. and then I placed them all back in the freezer to set for around an hour. And once they were set, I just served them up in a bowl. These are like little mini strawberry cheesecakes, the yoghurt being the creamy layer and the nuts being the base. The yoghurt doesn't freeze as well as melted chocolate does, which is my favourite thing to dip strawberries into. But this is another great way to add a little something to your fruit snack. And that is it for another day on my plate. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I have written up some of the recipes over on my blog, and I'll write up the other ones in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!